Good day, students. Today we are looking at bearing. Since we've been able to learn how to place angles in their quadrant in the last class, we can move forward to understanding some things about bearing. A bearing is an angle measured in the clockwise direction from the north. It is usually measured from the north. The bearing is used to describe the position or location of a given place with reference to another. For example, if the bearing of A from B is 49 degrees, what is the bearing of B from A? First of all, you determine which quadrant is this 49 degrees. 49 degrees is in the first quadrant. That is in the first quadrant. So that means you need to draw your 4 cardinal points. You have the north, south, and the west, east. So 49 should be in the first quadrant. So you come to the first quadrant, your line. So that means from the north up to where this line is 49 degrees. So let's go back to the question. We say if the bearing of A from B is 49 degrees. So it means that this point is for B. This is for point B. If the bearing of A, so this place will be for point A. This is for point B. If the bearing of A from this place from B is 49 degrees. So what is the bearing of B? What is now the bearing of B from A? What is the bearing of this B from A? So this is point A. So this is what you are going to do. You also draw the 4 cardinal points at this point. So the line you are going to draw at this point A, the vertical one parallel to this one and the horizontal one parallel to the one at B. So you draw your 4 cardinal points at point A. So this is the point. So now you now realize that to be able to know the bearing of B from A, so you start measuring it from the north. This is the north up to where this line is. So from the north up to where the line is. So you realize this, if you look at it, this one will be for the first quadrant, that is 90. Then this other one will be for the second quadrant. Then remaining the value of this angle. So what will be the value of this angle? So seeing this vertical line is parallel to the line that is here, you realize that you have something like Z here. So the angle here and this angle here, this angle and this angle are going to be equal because they are alternate angle. So that means if this is 49, this is also 49. So the bearing of B from A, you start measuring from the north up to where this line is. So that means you say 90 plus 90 plus 49. So you have 90 plus 19 plus 49. 90 plus 90 is 180. 180 plus 49 will give you 229 degrees. So it means that the bearing of B from A is 229 degrees. Now let's have another example. Yeah, having if the bearing of W from X is 125 degrees, what is the bearing of X from W? So first of all, you determine what quadrant is 125. 125 degrees is in the second quadrant. Now, when you draw your 4 cardinal points, so this is the second quadrant. So you are going to rule the line So it means that from the north up to this point is 125 degrees. When you break this down into the quadrant, 125 into the quadrant, you realize this place is what? 90, while the angle you are having here is 125 minus 90 will give you 35 degrees. Now let's go back to the question, which says if the bearing of W from X is 125 degrees, so that means 125 is X, so that means this point is X. If the bearing of W from X, so if this point is X, so this place will be W. So if the bearing of W from this place X is 125 degrees, what is the bearing of X from W? What is the bearing of X from W? So you want to know the bearing of this X from W. Now, this is what you are going to do. So at this point, you are going to draw your 4 cardinal points at this W. Draw your 4 cardinal points. Now, it means that you start measuring from the north pole here or to where this line is. So you measure from the north pole up to where the line is. So that means it covers the first quadrant, that's 90, the second quadrant, that's another 90, the third quadrant, that's another 90. Then you look for the value of this angle here. Now, since you see that this line and this line are parallel, so you now have something like Z this way. So look at which is what? An alternate angle. It means if this angle is 35, the remaining angle here also will give you 35. So to be able to know the bearing of X from W, so it will be from the north up to this. So that means you're having 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus 35. So 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus 35, which should give you 305 degrees. So it means the bearing of X from W is 305 degrees. 305 degrees. Let's consider another example. If the bearing of U from X is 240 degrees, what is the bearing of X from U? So first of all, you determine which quadrant is 240. 240 is in the third quadrant. So the line, this 1, 2, 3, this is the third quadrant. The 9 is going to be here. So from the north up to where this line is the third quadrant. When you break it down, you're having this place to be 90. This will be 90. Then you want to know the value of this angle. Now, if from here to this place is 240, so if this is 90 plus 90 is 180, 240 minus 180, that will give us 60. That means this angle here is 60. Now, let's come back to the question. If the bearing of U from X, so it means this point is X, while this point is what? U. If the bearing of X, if the bearing of U from X is 240 degrees, what is the bearing of X from U? So we want to know the bearing of X from U. So at this point also, you draw the 4 cardinal points. You draw the 4 cardinal points here. You know your vertical line will be parallel to the vertical here. Your horizontal line will be parallel to this one. So that means this line is going to fall on the first quadrant in this place. So, and you know that if this horizontal vertical line is parallel to this vertical line here. So if this is angle 60, this also will give you angle 60. So if this gives you, you know that you are having something like Z, that's an alternate angle. So if this is 60, this is also 60. So it means that for this one, this is in the first quadrant, the bearing of x from U was 60 degrees. But in bearing, we have to write it in 3 figures. So because of that, we are going to put 0 in front. So this is same thing as 60 degrees. So the bearing of x from U is 60 degrees. Now let's have another example. If the bearing of M from N is 300 degrees, what is the bearing of N from M? What is the bearing of N from M? If the bearing of M from N is 300 degrees, what is the bearing of N from M? So again, you have your 4 cardinal points. Draw your cardinal point. Then you say 300 degrees is in which of the quadrants? 300 degrees is in the 4th quadrant. So rule your line at the 4th quadrant. So that's it. So that means from the north up to where the line is 300 degrees. So if you break this down into the quadrant, you have what? 90 plus 90 plus 90 plus the angle that is here. The angle that is here will be what? 90 plus 90 plus 90 is 270. 300 minus 270 will give us what? That will be what? 30. So that means the remaining angle here is 30. Now let's go back to the question. If the bearing of M from N, so it means this point is N. If the bearing of M, so that means this point is M, this is N. If the bearing of M from N is 300, what is the bearing of N from M? What is the bearing of N from this place? So at this point also M, you draw the 4 cardinal points. So you draw it parallel to the one that is already on ground. So when you draw it, so you realize that the bearing of N from M will be what? You start measuring from the north up to where this line is. Now, so that means the first one here is what? The first quadrant, that is 90, plus the angle of this angle, value of this angle. Now, you see that if this line is parallel to this, you realize this one will form something like Z, showing that if this is angle 30, this angle will also give you 30 degrees. So to be able to know the bearing of N from M will be what? From this north to where this line is. So that means we'll be having what? 90 plus 30, which will give us what? 120 degrees. 120 degrees. For the work practice, you are going to do this. Number 1, the bearing of B from A is 28 degrees. What is the bearing of A from B? 2, the bearing of P from Q is 216 degrees. Find the bearing of Q from P. Number 3, the bearing of N from M is 315 degrees. Find the bearing of M from N. Number 4, the bearing of K from L is 164 degrees. Find the bearing of L from K. Number 5, the bearing of A from B is 192 degrees. Find the bearing of B from A. Number 6, the bearing of B from A is 37 degrees. What is the bearing of A from B? Number 7. The bearing of P from Q is 253 degrees. Find the bearing of Q from P. Number 8. The bearing of N from M is 308 degrees. Find the bearing of M from N. Number 9. The bearing of K from L is 139 degrees. Find the bearing of L from K. Number 10. The bearing of A from B is 215 degrees. Find the bearing of B from A. Please ensure you like, subscribe and comment on this video. Thank you.